So consider this. Our brain is consuming 400 billion bits of information a second. And our brain can only use 2,000 bits of that information. And now think about this. Our conscious mind only is using 50 bits of information. So that's where we're going to focus. The 50 bits of information that we're aware of and that we can control and that we can actually determine our reality based on the information that we're bringing in and that we're choosing to bring into our life. If we can control what we're allowing into our conscience, what we're allowing to accept for our reality, then we have the ability to create a story that's positive and empowering, and the ability to take in information that's worthwhile for us, that's beneficial, that's going to help us grow and flourish and be excited about life. Story that you've been telling about yourself, is it feeding you? Is it making you proud? Do you feel good about your story? A client that I've been working with wanted to reconnect with some of her healthy friendships that she's had in the past. And of those people, there was one particular friend who had been continually trying to connect with her, and she'd been avoiding. And so her goal, she'd set some homework for herself over the next week, was to contact this person and to reconnect and bring her back into her life. And when she came back the following week, I was so excited to hear her story and hear about her friend and how excited her friend probably was to reconnect with her. And instead, she came in kind of with her head hung low, and she looked really sad. And she said she wasn't able to get to her homework. She wasn't able to contact her friend. Life was busy, and she gave some excuses. And so at the end of the day, she decided she was going to try it again for next week. So, well, to make a long story short, when she came back, she didn't call her friend, and then she broke down crying. And I asked her what was keeping her from calling her friend. What was it that she was avoiding? And she shared with me that it was her story that she couldn't bear to tell her. She was ashamed of her last year that she'd had. I said, pretend that I'm your friend and tell me, how's your year been? And she said, well, I was in an abusive marriage and kept trying to leave, couldn't leave. Then I left and had no home, took my son with me, moved in with my dad, and he and my son didn't get along at all because my son has several different learning disabilities and has severe ADHD. And so he doesn't follow direction, and my father gets really upset with him, and then I have to intervene and try to moderate. And then my father's mad at me all the time because he thinks I'm a terrible parent. And so then I just got a boyfriend, and within a month I'm pregnant. So now I'm pregnant with a second child. My son's out of control, and I'm just miserable. I'm very unhappy, and I want to move in with my new boyfriend, but it doesn't seem like he really wants that, and I don't know that he could handle my son either. So it's been a really tough year, and I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my job. Oh, and I just found out that the owner of the apartment that my dad has, they sold it. So I have to be out of this apartment soon. And so she told me this story in a positive way. How about if you tell me all the good things that happened to you in the last year? And she shrugged and she seemed frustrated about my request. But she began to share with me everything she could drum up that was positive. It took her a little longer, but here are some of the things she said. And if you listen, it's really the same things were happening, but she was saying it in a positive way. For example, I finally left my husband who was abusing me, and I had the strength to walk away from that marriage, and I had the strength to get out of an abusive relationship and get my son out of there. I had a place to go. My dad took us in. Full man and fell in love. And now I'm going to have a child. And the timing isn't great, but I'm kind of excited about this because it's going to be a girl. And I don't know that we're going to move in together, but we haven't known each other that long. So this gives me time to figure things out and maybe move slower because I haven't done that in the past. And the other thing too is there's been stuff going on where my son's ADHD has been really bad, and some of the learning disabilities have overwhelmed our family and made issues kind of strong between my father and my son. However, in this, we've decided to reach out. So now we have a social worker that comes into the house and is helping my son learn, maybe to help him learn how to interact better with other people. So she was saying maybe, having my dad frustrated and expressing his concern over how I was parenting has really taken us in another direction, and we're now reaching out and getting some help for my son. So the reason why I'm telling you this story about this client is because it was such an empowering moment for her to tell the same story in a different light, from a different angle, from a place of gratitude and positivity. And she got so emotional and so excited that she said, wow, if I could just start looking at my life differently like this, I actually feel like I want to take a step forward. And so I'm sharing this with all of you today because your story might not be as bad as hers, or it might be worse. I don't know. I mean, everybody's story is different. However, we all have the power to decide what our reality looks like by the way we tell our story. So consider that today. Consider, how am I sharing my stuff? What angle am I putting on my story? And how can I adjust that? Or how can I encourage somebody else in my life that's really negative or really feeling down about themselves, to encourage them to look at their life from a different viewpoint, from a more positive and looking at life not from the victim standpoint, but as a champion in your life, and recognizing the good that's taking place.